The launch of Twitter as a mainstream social media platform was a carefully crafted campaign coordinated at the Sun Valley Conference, which is like the Bilderberg Group meeting for media and technology executives, where they meet every July in the resort town of Sun Valley, Idaho, to scheme to maintain their information monopolies. When Twitter was chosen as another approved platform to be mainstreamed, various celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, Ashton Kutcher, and even CNN launched the promotional campaign called Twitter's Million Followers Contest in 2009. People felt that they were helping their favorite celebrity by signing up and following them so they could be the first to get to 1 million followers. It was genius in a sinister way. We tend to forget how these platforms were birthed and why just a small handful of them have mainstream approval. So it's important to remember that the launch of Twitter was a carefully crafted marketing campaign, which almost everyone has forgotten about by now. Today, it just seems like a normal part of media broadcasts for every television host, every television series, and every consumer brand product asking you to follow them on Twitter. Notice how none of them talk about Gab or Parler back when it was popular before being banned after January 6th, or Truth Social or Telegram, not even Fox News hosts. They only want you to follow them on the mainstream approved platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's interesting to note that the CIA actually created a Cuban Twitter so that they could monitor everyone's activity in the country and manage the spread of information in order to undermine the government there. And it would be foolish to deny that the CIA and other deep state agencies have the same interest and control over Twitter in America, along with the other major social media sites as well. Elon Musk certainly threw a wrench into their plan, and I'll get more into that later. It certainly is odd that under the previous ownership, Twitter awarded the coveted blue verification checkmark to a supposed 8-year-old Syrian refugee, despite the minimum age to be allowed on Twitter being 13. Starting in 2016, the account for Bana al-Abed began posting photos of the civil war-torn country, urging people around the world, in English, to help. Her tweets soon began making headlines, gaining her nearly 300,000 followers, and she was even invited to the 2018 Academy Awards and brought on stage for a performance by Andra Day and rapper Common for their song Stand Up for Something as part of the propaganda campaign. President Trump had wanted to stop intervening in foreign affairs that didn't directly affect the United States, and what better way to undermine his efforts than showcase an 8-year-old Syrian girl using social media to beg for America's help? Twitter is the engine that's driving the crazy train of social media. Well, that along with TikTok. TikTok was sort of the sleeping giant, but Twitter drives the news cycle. Fake news and idiotic ideas spread faster on Twitter than any other social media platform. It's the place where people share first and think later, or don't think at all in most cases, and it's mostly just a sea of angry people arguing with each other and jumping to conclusions based on out-of-context statements, photos and video clips, and spread the falsehoods without a second thought. By the time the facts come out, the misinformation has already gone viral and shown up on the trending list, poisoning the opinions of countless others. Few people delete their tweets, which fuel fake news fires, and fewer still issue retractions when learning of their mistake. Even in those rare occasions, the retractions receive little attention compared to the initial tweets, since they haven't been retweeted thousands of times, not to mention most of the damage has already been done. Who knows what will happen when deepfake videos become more popular and carefully crafted hoax clips spread through Twitter. The effects could be devastating beyond measure unless or until Twitter and other social media platforms can automatically scan every video or audio clip that's uploaded to detect whether or not they're deep fakes and then label them as such. It's something that I covered in detail in a previous video titled The Future of Fake News, if you haven't seen it. Spreading misinformation through Twitter isn't just something that random idiots do online. Most fake news comes from the mainstream media, who either create it or amplify it. For example, a Washington Post reporter tweeted a photo of the audience at a Trump event in Florida that went viral, claiming the event had a ton of empty seats, disputing President Trump's statement that people had to be turned away because the stadium was over capacity. Liberals started calling him a liar because the prestigious Washington Post said otherwise, but the photo was taken hours before the event had actually started, which is why there were rows of empty seats. Just hours after President Trump was inaugurated in January 2017, a Time magazine reporter tweeted that Trump removed the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office, tweeting a photo of where it sat, claiming that it was gone, insinuating that Trump is such a racist that he couldn't stand to see the face of Martin Luther King Jr. in his new office, and got rid of it on his first day as president. It turned out that someone was just standing in front of it, blocking it from view. And the bust was still there, but countless liberals retweeted their disgust after being duped by an authoritative Time magazine reporter who made the claim. There are countless vipers who live online glued to their phones and derive a sense of power from the amount of likes and retweets they get, and many function as a volunteer army ready to attack any target on demand. Twitter is where liberals harass companies that advertise on Fox News, and where they flood the mentions of anyone who dares to speak out against corporations pandering to the gays and transgenders during Pride Month. Twitter can suck you in, wasting hours of your time while you argue with idiots about anything and everything, since your mentions can easily turn into an endless flow of responses from more and more people as those triggered by your tweets keep sharing them with their followers, rallying others to join in on the dog pile. Twitter is often a dangerous and mind-bending place that sparks real-world violence, regularly riling up Black Lives Matter rioters and Antifa who coordinate their riots with impunity. And while the big tech companies are determined to ban anyone posting support for supposed white supremacy, which usually just means white people exposing anti-whiteism, big tech always turns a blind eye to radical black power groups and their supporters who promote extremist ideologies and spread anti-white hatred. Twitter is such a haven for fake news that the Associated Press account was hacked in 2013 and tweeted that the White House had been bombed and that President Obama was injured. The tweet was also said to have caused the stock market to start falling until it was discovered that it was a hoax. Imagine if a hacker started tweeting as the President of the United States. In fact, a hacker gained access to Jack Dorsey's account not that long ago when he was still the CEO and tweeted as him. So don't think that it can't happen to the president. While Democrats often cry about Russian bots and trolls manipulating Twitter by supposedly tweeting out certain hashtags, hoping to boost them into the trending module, or mass liking certain tweets to give the appearance that the message is resonating with more people than it actually is, the effect that they have had is actually often very minimal. One of Twitter's executives at the time, Nick Pickles, testified at a congressional hearing that just 49 Twitter accounts from Russia were involved in trying to artificially boost support for Brexit, the proposal for England to leave the European Union, and those collective tweets had only been liked about 600 times and retweeted less than 500 times. Twitter's trending list is supposed to be the top 10 list of the most tweeted about topics or hashtags of the moment, but most users are unaware of the manual curation that's often involved, or at least was involved until Elon took over. Until then, topics were regularly artificially boosted to give the appearance that they were popular while others were suppressed to prevent people from looking into them. And it appears that Elon has made some major changes regarding the manipulation of the trending list. But so far, he hasn't released any Twitter files about the extent of the manipulation. If something trends on Twitter, it then starts making national headlines. Whether it's a local issue in a small town for whatever reason goes viral and starts trending, or something stupid that a celebrity said or did, if it trends, it then makes headlines. And whether you use Twitter or not, one of its primary purposes has been to shape public opinion and drive stories into the news cycle by creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, by injecting topics into the trending list to make people think that everyone is tweeting about them. People then do start tweeting about them since they think they're commenting on one of the top trends of the day, thus creating an artificial feedback loop and causing countless people to get introduced to the topic as a result. After Trump won the 2016 election, the manipulation of Twitter, like all the other big tech platforms, started getting much worse, and the bogus fact checks and missing context labels started popping up, and the systematic censoring of accounts became truly Orwellian. Social media's architecture used to enable essentially peer-to-peer communication, not in the truly decentralized fashion, but that's how the messaging basically worked. Everyone who followed you would see your posts in chronological order in their feeds, but then the big tech companies introduced algorithm filters, reverting the platforms back to a top-down hierarchical information system, manipulating and limiting the distribution of content, just like the legacy publishers they once aimed to replace. The empire struck back, co-opting the new tech with mainstream media legacy outlets, partnering with the social media platforms to favor their content and suppress the reach of ordinary users and independent news outlets and pundits. But the Jedi later returned with new independent platforms that function the way social media was supposed to, like Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, and Telegram, and Locals. The long-term viability of these platforms remains to be seen, since having a half a dozen Twitter competitors fractures the user base. Nobody is really even using Parler at this point, although it was once a thriving platform before it got banned from the app stores after January 6th. Although it is back, most people moved on to Gab or Truth Social. With Elon taking over Twitter, he has made some great changes, reinstating a bunch of people who were wrongfully banned and ended the censorship of questioning COVID lockdowns and the vaccines, but he's made it clear that supposed hate speech will still not be allowed on Twitter, except of course hate speech against Christians and white people. And many of his moderation decisions are based on a whim instead of any principled stance. The release of the Twitter files has been nice, but mostly just confirmed what was obvious, like the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story, internal communications revealing Twitter executives admitted that Donald Trump didn't violate the terms of service, but they banned him anyway. Probably the most interesting thing to come out of the Twitter files, and the thing that most people didn't know about unless they read my books because I had exposed it years earlier, was that Operation Earnest Voice was allowed to break the rules. That's the online influence program run by the US military, where they manage sock puppet accounts or a bunch of different accounts all run by the same administrator, so they can flood social media with posts to shape the narrative around certain events or topics. But at least Elon isn't completely bending over for big tech and is helping to change the culture by supporting freer speech on a mainstream platform. But while Twitter is the talk of the town, or at least the talk of the internet lately, with Elon replacing Donald Trump as enemy number one for a while, YouTube is my home base. I haven't tweeted in over 9 months and rarely, if ever, check my mentions at all, because I'd rather hang out here in the comments section on YouTube. The amount of time that it takes to post tweets is 3 to 5 seconds. Compare that to the time that it takes to produce a basic YouTube video, which, even if it's only 3 to 5 minutes long, takes a ton more forethought and preparation, not to mention post-production, which means all the editing. A lot more work goes into a short little YouTube video than most people know. Twitter is basically like junk food. It's the junk food of social media, whereas YouTube, despite all of its problems, is a platform where you can prepare a full 4-course meal of content that's infinitely higher quality than anything you'll ever find on Twitter. And if you like my videos, then of course you'll love reading my books. So order The Liberal Media Industrial Complex or The True Story of Fake News, or any of my books in paperback from Amazon.com, or download the ebooks from any of the major ebook stores. And of course, there are links to the Amazon listings in the description below. So click them and head on over there and check them out.